shortly after the Monetary Policy Committee of the Central Bank of Nigeria met last week. Dr. Kingsley Moghalu, a former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, gave reasons for Nigeria's foreign currency woes. Moghalu, who was reacting to the CBN clampdown on a website, abokifx.com, said the most important determinant of the value of the naira is whether or not the economy is productive and competitive in international trade. He, however, acknowledged that currency speculation affects the value of a nation's currency. According to him, there are currency traders around the world for whom the weakness of a currency is their very good fortune. He says such traders attack such currencies for profit, especially where the currency is using a fixed official exchange rate determined by the central bank instead of the market. Moghalu also spoke at the U.S-Nigeria Investment Forum in New York at the weekend, said foreign direct investment can help lift the country out of poverty if it is targeted at the real economy. According to the former central banker turned politician, Nigeria needs to adopt a strategy and incorporate political risk guarantees into major foreign direct investment agreements. Now joining us from Washington, D.C. in the United States to give us more insight on the policies that should be adopted to improve foreign exchange accretion and capital importation into the Nigerian economy is Dr. Kingsley Moghalu. Dr. Moghalu, a former presidential candidate of the Young Progressives Party, is a lawyer, economist, and academician. Good morning, Kingsley Moghalu, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning, Ruben. Rufai.
Good morning, Dr. Moghalu.
Well, let's go straight into it. I quoted you earlier on the program when we had the Rutu Soduri here. Is the determination of the value of the naira a political or economic decision?
It is an economic decision, which has been unduly politicized in recent times. And of course, when you introduce politics into issues of the market, demand and supply, you will find that the laws of the market do not obey political orders.
So how can we get Nigeria producing again?
Well, the first way to get Nigeria producing is to understand what economic diversification really means. There are three types of economic diversification. You have what we call GDP diversification. That is a diversification in what contributes to the gross domestic product. You have, as we used to have before, oil, the oil sector contributing a lot to GDP, but it's gone down to about 10% now, and agriculture has gone up to about 30-something%. Now, but that is not what is really important. What is important for an economy is the export diversification, the diversification of the goods you export. So there we have not done very well. And we find that the oil sector still continues to be the main contributor of revenue for the country, whereas that export diversification should focus on value-added manufactured goods, competitively produced, traded in the international economy, bringing us Forex back into the country. Then, of course, you have fiscal diversification. So that second aspect, the whole question of diversification of the Nigerian economy, and the way to get there, I want to be very clear, is to focus on the education system in this country. We need to create what we call in economics productive knowledge in Nigeria. Many people go through universities, many people go through schools, but few people have the kinds of skills that drive industrially powered economies. That's where we need to focus. The education system, what is coming out of it, how competitive it is in terms of the skills base, and then provide an opportunity for production. And then we need to focus also heavily on industrial policy in Nigeria. And that means you now have to also deal with trade policy. Why should goods that are imported from China be cheaper than goods that are manufactured in Nigeria? That's a practical problem for industrial production inside Nigeria. So these are things we have to look at with trade policy to incentivize the exports of finished products. That is very, very important. So we need to look at the educational system, we need to look at industrial policy, and we need to look at trade policy. It's these three things that will take us out of the woods. Unfortunately, it takes a bit of time. It doesn't happen overnight, and it requires a very competent leadership to drive it.
I mean, great point you made. And while you were talking, I just thought of the AUKUS deal between France and Australia that was botched, and the fact that French engineers were already deployed to sites. When are we going to have Nigerian engineers building refinery and the likes? So how are we going to win ourselves off this cheap imports, that doesn't do any well for economy, that kills our job and everything, and transit to that knowledge-based economy, the day and age in this country where Nigerian engineers will be able to build a refinery from scratch, that we don't have to bring in maybe Chinese or French engineers into the country. The day we'll stop even bringing people that just have technical school degrees, because we don't see that level, with Nigerian engineers. Things as small as welding. We're bringing foreigners to come and do welding in this country. Welding.
Absolutely. So that's a very big problem. I often tell the story of when I used to live in Switzerland when I was working for the United Nations, and I had a plumber who came to fix a broken toilet. And I opened the door when he knocked and saw him, and I saw a BMW parked outside. I did not connect the BMW with the plumber. Maybe I was still in my Nigerian mentality, but he introduced himself. And I said, I kind of raised my eyebrow. I said, okay, that's fine. And when he finished the job and gave me the bill, I understood why he could afford a BMW. So technical skills, are what drive modern economies. It's not just having university degrees. It's not, people can get those skills from on-the-job training, and they're certified. They can get those degrees from polytechnics. They can get them from technical schools. So we need to, the crisis of education. Education is what determines the progress or the absence of it of any society. And we're not focusing heavily enough on this sector. We're allocating it very small peanuts while we are spending a lot of money on things that are not necessarily driving Nigeria's competitiveness in the global economy.
Well, Kingsley, let me ask you, all these controversies about Forex, what really is the difference between the FX rates at the I&E window and the black market? And why are rates offered, for instance, by Travelex in the UK or US airports not used to determine US and UK foreign exchange rates, given the differentials compared to practices in Nigeria of using black market rates as effective rates?
The problem in Nigeria's economic management is that we are philosophically confused, or we are philosophically actually not even present. You cannot run an economy without a clear philosophy. We are not sure whether Nigeria is a capitalist country, a statist economy, something in between. It's not clear. The government of Nigeria is involved too much and too deeply in the Nigerian economy. And once you do that, it creates room for corruption, arbitrage, and perversion of the free flow of the market. This is what is happening to Nigeria. Now, you find that the price at the I&E window, the investors window, is about 410 naira to the dollar, but on the black market, it's gone down to 470. A gap of about 160 naira between the official window and the parallel market, it indicates a very serious crisis. And that's because of the official policy that focuses a lot on trying to control the official windows of Forex. And so people who have access to those windows benefit because they can get those things and go and sell them on the black market, where most of the demand is being met, unfortunately. There is also the 43 items that are banned. Again, many people need those items and also buy the money on the black market. So the focus on controlling the price of the naira relative to the dollar, when that price is not supported by the reality of economics, the reality of demand and supply, the reality of whether the economy is complex to export things and end Forex. That's the problem we're facing. So, and the reason this is happening is because the government feels a political imperative to control the price of the naira relative to the dollar, but it has consistently failed over many years. Now, let me remind you that I was a deputy governor of the central bank. This problem is not new. It has only gotten worse. When I was at the central bank, the exchange rate was between 150 to 165 most of the time. That I was there between 2009 and 2014. But at that time, Nigeria gained a lot of money from oil prices. We had free entry, free exit for capital importation. That was one of the reforms we did. And so we made things very easy for investors. We reformed the banking and the financial system and the payment system, and we jealously guarded our independence as a central bank. All these things are factors that investors take into consideration when they want to go into the country. The quality of the institutions that they directly deal with is very important in their mind. They wonder whether the central bank is independent, and so on and so forth. So these are all factors. There are many factors that have brought us to where we are. But I say that, forgive me, you see, we often think that technocrats can change the Nigerian economy. They can't. For as long as Nigeria is led by politically and economically incompetent people, Nigeria's economy cannot be transformed. If I was president of Nigeria today, and I know what I'm telling you, and I have the political will to pursue these reforms, I think there will be a better chance of the economy getting better. But if you're led just by politicians who do not understand these things, and so they cannot come at it with knowledge, then there's a problem. All they think about is politics, the politics of personal advantage, the politics of benefit and patronage. Nigeria's economy is simply a rentier economy. That's what it is. Those who have political power control access or have access to benefits from the foreign exchange market. And the masses who actually need that foreign exchange cannot get it at affordable rates. That's what's happening. And it's all about politics and political system.
Right. How do regulators manage the perception, or is it a perception, that black markets are effective rates when they account for a tiny percentage of the volume of FX trade?
Well, because, it's kind of difficult. And that is where you have, of course, the controversies with Aboki FX and things like that. But many people who are ordinary people are not able to get foreign exchange at the official rates. Big companies may be able to, and many other entities may be able to. And those, you would say, those are the big ticket items, yes. But perception, is a very important thing. And perception drives reality many times. So the only way to solve that problem is to go back to the more fundamental issues I have raised. Can Nigeria succeed in trying to control the price of the naira to convertible currencies without fundamental economic reforms? I doubt it. So this is what drives the perception, this gap in the parallel market. The parallel market, the gap between the official rates and the parallel market should not be more than 20 to 30 naira at most. But here you are, about 150 to 160 gap. I also believe that we even need to go further to think about why must the central bank be the only or the main institution controlling access to foreign currency in Nigeria? Do you go to London and the Bank of England runs everything about Forex? No, you have a Forex market on the street, and the rates are determined by demand and supply. So, there are many things we need to look at in Nigeria that are very fundamental, but they require political will to be able to do so. But when we avoid tough decisions, and we say we are leaders. We're not leaders, we're just politicians. Because leadership means or requires tough decisions. Because you're thinking about the trajectory of the country into the future. And, you know, the more you kick the can down the road, the more you postpone these tough decisions, the more we suffer as a country.
You know, from all of this you said, I can infer that a very big problem is the fact that government is too big, you know, and that has also...
Government is Nigeria's economic problem.
Yeah,
government.
It's too big.
And the government should get out of the way. They should get out of the way. Nigerians are very resourceful and dynamic people. What the government should do is to set the policy, the framework, and regulate the market, you know, in a careful manner. But the government wants to determine the price of everything. They want to determine the price of petrol. They want to determine the price of the naira and the dollar. They want to determine everything. And they do this in the name of the people, mind you. And meanwhile, the people themselves end up being the biggest victims. That's very, I find that a huge paradox.
But real quickly, attracting, you know, portfolio investments, which is at a very big all-time low in Nigeria now, what will be the path for that?
Well, you see, portfolio investment, which used to be very high in Nigeria when I was there at the central bank, it follows very heavily perceptions of the political stability of the country, the regulatory institutions, and economic fundamentals. That's what drives portfolio investments, and of course, monetary policy. You know, so interest rates have also gone down, and so portfolio investments also respond to that, because when interest rates are high in response to inflation, then portfolio investors make more money, and they will bring in a lot more money into the country, which helps to keep the price of the dollar down. So there's a lot of issues of perception and substance that drive the behavior of Forex investors. But I think confidence in the Nigerian economy has gone down in recent years quite significantly. That's one of the main reasons you're not seeing them.
Okay, let's come back to the topical issues we're dealing with Forex. Now, during Abacha's regime, the differential was $20, you know, 22 naira to the dollar, or later 88 to the dollar. Now, things were stable relatively at that time. So what has really changed? And then a few days ago, we were told Aboki FX is the problem. You know, do you agree with that? Although you added Ifekago, Kaego FX to it, you know, we were still worrying about Aboki. You brought up Ifekago. What is Ifekago FX all about? Over to you.
Well, I wrote a short piece called the Ifekago Foreign Exchange Tutorial. I am the Ifekago of Newi Kingdom. That's my traditional title. And so I was simply branding my opinion to be very personal to me. So I was just making fun. That's all it was. Now, you know, you talked about the Abacha era. Even in the Abacha era, we had this problem. But the economy in the Abacha era was not as big as it is today. There was quite a significant gap between the official rates and the black market rates. So this problem is not new. It has only gotten bigger and worse. That's just what we're suffering. I'm not pretending that it's a new problem. But at different phases for the past 30 years, you know, when we went into structural adjustment and some of these things, we have had these problems about whether or not the economy is fundamentally productive enough to create stability for the value of the naira. And the value of the naira has been determined largely by Nigeria's foreign reserves, and what feeds those foreign reserves is the oil price. The oil price has been unstable for many years. The commodity super cycle is over, and it's going to be until 2040 by estimates before oil will get to $100 a barrel again, if ever. So our best days, our glory days from oil are way behind us, and we need to readjust ourselves for the future. So hard decisions are called for. You know, should we let the naira find its value in the market? This is going to bring a huge spike in the immediate response to such a policy. I don't pretend about it. But if it's very carefully done, and trade policy, I keep coming back to trade policy, because we have never benefited from devaluations of the naira. the way you benefit from devaluing the currency is that your trade, your foreign trade, becomes more beneficial to you because it's cheaper to buy goods from you for foreign trading partners. But this has not happened. You know, we still continue to be an import-dependent economy, and the gap between our imports and exports is so huge. So trade policy is very, very important. But we conduct monetary policy, fiscal policy, foreign exchange policy without very significant alignment with trade. And so there's a broken connection there. So then, of course, like I said in my piece, the Ifekego foreign exchange tutorial, the controversial possibility of dollarizing the Nigerian economy for some years at least. But that has huge implications because the central bank will, of course, lose the ability to take decisions on things like the interest rates and so on, because the currency now becomes officially, the dollar is now a Nigerian currency, either alongside the naira or replacing the naira. So, but like I said, and of course, there are huge issues of national pride. You know, oh, now we're an independent country, we have to use the foreign currency of another country. But you have to ask yourself, what use is your independence if your economy is being blown to smithereens and there is no hope in sight? I don't know.
I have to say, I was going to raise that option that you introduced in your piece about the dollarization of our economy. It did raise a few eyebrows, but you've answered those questions talking about the pros and cons. But can you expand further? You did say that it's an option, just something that you tabled. What point would we have to get to begin to consider that option seriously?
Well, the point, you see, about leadership, and that's why I say I'm a leader, I'm not really a politician, but I'm in politics because you can't get to leadership in a democracy or pseudo-democracy without going through the political path. But all we have in Nigeria is politics without leadership. Now, you know, I introduced that option because we need to face the reality. Are we going to wait until we get to 1,000 naira to the dollar? And that's where things are going. So you can continue to postpone the evil day. You have to look very seriously at your options. And at some point, somebody has to come to grips with the problem. But in coming to grips with the problem, there is again another leadership lacuna I see in Nigeria. The Nigerian government has problems, you know, in communicating to Nigerians. There is a way you communicate to citizens in a time of crisis, and people will understand what the stakes are. And you call on the better angels of their nature to ask them to make sacrifices for a period. You explain the economics to them, why we have to do this or that, and then, you know, and then make a decision on what path to follow. So it's a matter of political will, which option you choose and when you choose it. But Nigeria's politicians, they don't lead, they just play politics. So they just kick the can down the road. I am sorry for whoever will take office in 2023 as president of this country. If that person is not an economically sound mind with the knowledge and the wisdom to take the Nigerian economy out of the woods, we're still in elementary school in terms of our problems. We're yet to get to university if we're not careful.
So in thinking of options, can the Ghanaian model be another option or sort of like a revaluation? And I think that was touted by Charles Chukwuma Soludo a couple of years back.
Yes.
And it was stopped, you know, by the executive, which was very shocking for me because of the autonomy the CBN is supposed to have. Could that be another option? What do you think about that?
Yes, it is one of the options. It is one of the options. The redecimalization of the Nigerian economy. It is one option also. It has, you know, its own complications, but all options should be on the table. That's the whole point. There are many options, you know. I mean, I did a short piece just reacting to breaking news. But when we go into the depth of it, there are many nuances and combinations of options that can be used to address the crisis of the naira. But you see, the problem with a country like Nigeria, which you cannot compare with a country like Ghana, Nigeria has a lot more people. Its economy is much bigger. So when you want to adopt a solution, you have to look at the Nigerian factor, you know, in that solution and do a risk simulation You have to really take a risk management approach, envisage all scenarios and what the risks are and how do you manage those risks. But I can tell you, if we go back to the the SIM card, the whole telecommunications deregulation exercise, we find as the example of how the free market functions. There was a time SIM cards in this country were costing 30,000 naira, 20-something thousand naira. Today you can pick them up for nothing. But that's because that whole industry was just opened up and the laws of demand and supply eventually brought down the price. In the beginning, it was high. So this is the problem with petroleum subsidy. This is the problem with the naira. This is, we have to bite the bullet and let the market take charge and we regulate the market. That's what we should do. And at the same time, just like petroleum subsidy, sorry to come there. If you remove the subsidy, the 1 trillion naira you spend a year on subsidy, and invest it in the healthcare system, in the educational system, in the transport system, so that more people use public transport. If you invest it even in subsidizing production rather than subsidizing consumption, I think Nigeria will be better off. But these things need to be communicated, they need to be explained, and they need to be done intelligently. So public policy is not a picnic. I got to tell you, it's tough.
Okay, in your Ifekago tutorial, you have explained part of what I'm going to bring up. You are recommending rate convergence. You say the naira should be allowed to find its level. And you're also saying the practice of the CBN pumping dollars into the market to prop up the naira will not work. Now, this rate convergence,
it's not sustainable.
Yes, this rate convergence that you are recommending, where does that leave the ordinary man who is going to be eventually impacted by all of this?
The issue with rate convergence is that if you say there are many crimes that are committed in the name of the people. When I say crimes, I don't mean real crimes. I mean, policy decisions that eventually hurt everybody, but we say we're doing it for the people. Economics responds to incentives. If you take a certain decision, everybody will be looking to get into the export business. And this brings me to another thing. The central bank, I'm not sure how effectively Nigeria is collecting export proceeds. Many people export things from our country, but they're not bringing in the remittances of the dollars or the foreign exchange they earn. So this is one area that seems to have some regulatory weakness. But back to the main issue. When you achieve rate convergence, what happens is that you introduce transparency and you remove corruption. What is happening now is that when you have differential exchange rates in an economy that are official, it tells you that something is wrong. Many people, from what we know of our country, will access those rates that are low officially for the stated purpose, but that is not what the money will be used for. And the bank will have no way of really, monitoring this. So differential exchange rates breed corruption. And we have had stories anecdotally of people with political influence who have accessed dollars from the central bank at very low rates for certain purposes and just head to the black market to make money. Incentives. Differential exchange rates create a huge incentive for corruption and arbitrage and round tripping. That's why I recommend rate convergence, and that's why everybody recommends it. So when we say, the people, the long-term interest of the people is best served by wiping out these corruptions. That's my view.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Kingsley Moghalu, for joining us on the morning show today. Thank you very much indeed for your time and insight.